Call Sterling Planning Board meeting to order Thursday, December 18th, 6:30 p.m. Very small agenda tonight. Big subject. Working session on residential zoning changes. So here we go.
So board members, by now I've made the tour of all the other boards, commissions, and committees and got their feedback. We had our public forum last Monday night. Comments sent in from several citizens. You've got it all. So I think it's going to take a couple meetings for us to wade through this and settle on what we want to settle on. I thought we'd take the easy stuff first and get that out of the way and slowly move into the harder stuff. So let's start with our two minor zoning amendments.
Just want to make sure I get the right draft, July 29th.
July 29th, 2025. Really, we didn't get any feedback one way or another on either of these.
All right.
This is the depth to water table standard for new septic systems, having our standard aligned with the state standard. This is it right here.
Got it.
Okay. And then the other zoning amendment was having roads that front on state roads follow the state's driveway width requirement of 22 feet and not have to get a variance from the zoning board for not meeting the town standard of 18 feet. So nobody had any issues with these. I wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
All right. On to the next matter, which is the zoning proposal that clarifies the zoning bylaws accessory structures provision, essentially saying that truck boxes, Connex boxes, and steel storage units are not allowed in residential zoning districts as permanent accessory structures. This is an issue brought up by the building department. The only feedback I got on this was from Bob Nickerson, who's on conservation and the AgCon, and he says there should be an exemption for agricultural operations.
Which everyone then plants two plants and put one on their property and says, I have agricultural. That's my only issue with it, because if you're talking rural residential or neighborhoods.
We would specify that this would only, that the exemption would only be available to those agricultural operations that are exempt from zoning, and those are 5 acres or more.
Okay.
So that's how I would word it if you're so inclined to have that provision.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking like a farm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
5-acre farm. The only thing I'd mention is, I thought this was going to include commercial. Originally, when we had talked about this, at least between ourselves, we had talked about the increase in them being used in commercial properties.
I think this was always residential.
Oh yeah, that is annoying.
Yeah, that was part of it to me, is that everyone in town now is using these Connex boxes at every commercial property. I didn't think there was a problem within residential. I'm not aware. Are we aware of any that are being used in residential?
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Building commission has gotten several complaints about them being used as accessory structures in residential districts. That's why he asked me to put something together on that. Compact Development Overlay District. The only feedback I got on that was from the zoning board. They do not support it. Pat, do you want me to read what you wrote, or do you want to just...
Oh, go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. All right. The zoning board does not support the proposal for the compact development district because it believes the proposal would be impractical on the identified site and if allowed, would create too much density on the site. Given the characteristics of the site, rezoning the site for light industrial uses might be more appropriate. I didn't get any other feedback on this proposal. We've still got a willing landowner who's willing to host this overlay district on her two properties. Zoning board is right in that the site conditions do limit the amount of housing that could be built out there. Once you get beyond the runway portion, there's a little bit of land there that could be used for housing, but then it gets very steep in back of it. And on her abutting property, there's about 15 acres of usable land that fronts on Old Princeton Road, but the back of her property is wet. So we're not talking a whole lot of housing that could be built out there either way.
It's not much at all, and actually, you'd be faced with the same situation if it was light industrial. You'd still have to deal with the topography and the condition of the
I
property.
certainly can't see that second piece being light industrial. I think that the only two entrances and exits on that are on,
No, I think the
maybe
zoning
right next to
board
houses.
thinking the
Possibly if they
entire
develop that
airport
would be-
property being.
That's, I don't want to interrupt, but I think that's what we're thinking of, that's adjacent to the airport. Apparently, the lady who owns the property intends to keep the airport as the airport, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, she's marketing it both as an airport and as industrial
Industrial,
land.
yeah.
She hasn't told me,
She's selling it.
she hasn't told me one way or another whether she's got a bite for one option or the other. So she hasn't told me not to move forward with
It
this.
could go either way.
The only issue I have with changing someone's zoning that's actively, or at least semi-actively looking at selling a property, to me, right now, they could sell that as residential land. And then to all of a sudden just say, by the way, we're changing your zoning, to me, it is really interfering with someone's livelihood. It's interfering with a long-term investment. And even if it's impractical, it's probably not impossible. To me, it's kind of like the MBTA overlay. That's probably not practical, but it's possible. It's the same thing with her land, that if she chooses, and I had the option, I'd rather see an airport or some other minimal use of that industrial property and homes somewhere on that property than I would say, let's zone the whole thing industrial and have, I'm assuming, a larger company or larger business come in because now they have more access.
So if she does sell it as an airport, the idea of using the airport property backland is moot because the runway goes the length of the
Right.
property.
No access.
If she sells it as straight up industrial land, then there does exist the possibility of putting a road that goes through the industrial portion of the land to the backland where some housing could be built. So, if you wanted to move forward with this, and we wanted to make sure that this is intended for smaller homes, while town council says we can't limit the number of bedrooms, we can limit the size of the structure.
And it's an overlay district. It's not going to preclude somebody from using it for light industrial if they choose to, if they bought it.
No, and I told her that if she found a potential buyer for that property that wanted to use the whole thing for industry, come back to us and pitch the idea to the board, and perhaps we would rezone all of the airport property for industrial. So that she's clear on that.
Can I ask a question? Is that, all that land is contiguous, right? The area around the airport, and then it leads up to 62.
Right.
I mean, you could foresee housing, I think, up near the 62.
Up at the top.
And the access is on
But
62.
down near the airport, it just doesn't seem.
It wouldn't be anywhere near the airport. It's where that was planned was behind it, that you'd cut an access road at the very end of the property. If it was no longer an airport, you could run it into the back and put homes there, and then whatever industrial use ends up there. It certainly doesn't seem like there's a bunch of people knocking their door down to buy the property. I think she was looking for more of an ability to market the land and get somebody suitable to build on it or do something.
It'd be an expensive piece to develop.
Her whole point
The road
was,
would be very expensive,
Right.
but the idea is if you could put multiple houses on it, even if they're smaller, at least there's something there.
Yeah.
Or it turns into, especially with that size, it turns into an over 55 community.
And without this,
she favored this because it was one more option
Oh, yeah.
for eventual disposal of the
Yep.
property.
And without this, with the other things don't really incentivize smaller single-family housing.
Right.
Right, this is the only,
It's the only one.
Yeah, this is the only way you end up with that property, if someone was gonna build a house with anything other than, what, $700,000-800,000 plus houses, $1 million houses, because that's where we tend to trend right now.
So are you inclined to keep this, or?
I am, yeah.
yeah.
I am. Yeah, at least it gives us a shot, maybe, at getting some smaller, cheaper houses in town.
So that brings us to the issue of establishing a maximum house size.
Do we have any idea how
2,000 square feet?
I think that's reasonable.
2,000 square foot's a 4-bedroom home?
Could be a 3-bedroom home.
Yeah. Right, I'm just saying, if they were gonna max it out, is that what we're looking to build?
We can't limit the bedrooms.
I'm sorry, I'm just, for scale, I'm using that for scale.
I think 2,000 square feet doesn't give you mansions, you know what I mean, to take advantage of that kind of zoning. And put 3,000 square foot houses in an area where the intent is to have smaller homes, more affordable homes.
But the original draft was for a 2-bedroom, right?
Yeah, that's part of my
Which
problem.
I've taken out because we can't say.
Agreed, but I think if someone said 2-bedroom, no one would think 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, it'd be more like
1,200, 1,400.
16, 18, something like that, yeah. But
Yeah,
whereas
I just want to see it turn into where we're having the idea and selling it basically as smaller, more affordable homes. And then everyone goes, yeah, and at this price per square foot, we're looking at $700,000 houses. So someone will save money because they're not buying $1 million house, but that's certainly not for
Yeah, I mean,
this.
a couple
Save
thousand
money
square
on the
feet.
land at least.
So a couple thousand square feet would be like a 28, 38 colonial, with a garage. That's
Yeah,
that would be
downtown right now is 6 at least, 700.
more money.
probably 7.
So that to me isn't
So what do
affordable.
you think, 1,500 or 750, 1,750, or?
Oh, if 2,000 sounds like too much, then go with 18. Now you're down to like 26, 36.
Yeah,
18?
18 seems logical.
Max
Sounds-
building size for principal residential structure.
How much, general thought, when you're talking about duplexes, about how large is the average size around here? I'm just,
Say on a duplex, I think the average around here is like 1,700 to
okay, I'm
1,800
just trying to idea of scale.
Per unit.
per unit.
Yeah.
17 or 1,800.
Totally get you.
Per unit.
Okay, perfect.
Right, so an 1,800 square foot house is
Oh,
very big,
comparable.
right?
And those are typically 2 bedrooms, 3?
Yeah,
Two with the duplex exception, yeah. Some are 3 though.
yeah,
Some are 3.
not that much though.
Yeah, some are 3.
Okay, why don't we move on to the definitions? Last draft is September 26, 2025. Everybody have it?
Which September 26th, you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
Only 2 suggested changes. If you take a look at structure on the next to the last page,
Next to last, you said?
yep, structure. Everybody find it?
Nope. Yep. That's basically the last page. He's got them two-sided here, that's why he's saying second to last. There you go.
the one that says veterinary kennels at the bottom. Got it? I got the date right?
Let me see. I'll find it for you. Towards the bottom of the page.
Okay. All right, got it.
Okay, so you see the new definition in red and the old one in strike through? Tony would like to bring the last sentence of our existing definition into the new one. And that reads, "A vessel shall not be considered a structure."
What's the definition of
A vessel. No, it does, because I know what someone's going to do. They're going to make a boat into a house, so they're going to say that this metal container is a vessel. A vessel is an open container. I mean, that, in the most liberal term, it doesn't mean a boat or a car, it can mean an open container.
Can be a truck with a box.
Could
Why
be
do you
anything.
want that?
That way, someone parks a boat on the property that they have, it's not considered a structure. I actually get that, like if you had a motor home, I'm assuming would count as a vessel.
I think the technicality there as to why he's looking for that is if it's registered. If something's registered, what do you do?
He just asked that I put that last sentence back into the new definition.
Yeah, to me, without a definition of a vessel, it means, again, there's enough ambiguity where someone's going to do something.
So that just means like if you had a boat parked on your property, it doesn't have to obey the setbacks for structures.
Yeah.
It can just be right up on the property
Yeah, or
line.
if somebody,
It's registered.
Yeah.
if it's that's the other thing. If we're talking about boats, trailers, motor vehicles, that's completely different than what I'd consider a vessel, because that could be just a boat. You see these people that put these large boats on their property while they're rehabbing it, 10, 15 years later, it's still there.
Oh, yeah, you're talking some big ones, though.
Yeah, that's,
In town,
yeah, they'll sit there for
some
20 years.
40, 60 footers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand the idea if it was something on a trailer and registered, but I just think it's too open with just that single line.
Problem putting it back in.
Okay.
I mean, this already says like assembled at a fixed location to give support or shelter. So like,
A boat or an RV gives shelter. Unregistered RV, you park it in the corner of the lot.
but the big old boats, they're not like living on them, are they? They're just rehabbing.
I mean, it's the same thing as an old RV. I mean, parking a 1972 Winnebago and it's right in the lot. I'd like some clarity from him. I think that could be written better, or maybe he can give us some suggestions on how to write that more clearly.
Want me to get with the building commissioner and quiz him on this, okay?
Yep.
I'm in agreement.
Yeah.
Since he's asking, why not?
Yeah, because we're not quite sure what a vessel can be.
Vessel can be anything.
The word alone doesn't, I mean, if they said a registered motor vehicle, trailer, boat, or RV, great, then at least we know what it means. But if it's anything, it's...
All right, the only other comment, if you'd flip over to the last page, definition for wholesale warehouse or distribution facility.
Last page?
Yep. Wholesale warehouse, right at the top. Premises used primarily for indoor storage of goods and materials for later distribution or use, but not for sale on the premises with or without accessory truck terminal facilities. Joe King wondered why we were prohibiting some amount of sales on the property, like a distribution center that had like a small retail counter.
Countertop.
Are we though? Because
We're not saying that you can't have countertop.
they'd have to go for a different permit. And also, to me, there is a significant difference between a wholesale warehouse and then adding a retail component. To me, that's different than something that's just shipping in and out. Because we do have just warehouse storage, we have retail, we have a bunch of other definitions that include probably what he wants. I think it would be a matter of that person writing it up properly?
So I think, if I remember our discussion about this well over a year ago.
Yeah, we talked about this already.
There was a warehouse operation that said, oh, I'd like to have a little bit of retail over here. A small part of my building used for retail. And then slowly over the years, the whole thing became like a retail center.
Yeah.
So I think that was why we wrote it up the way we did.
That's right, and then if it is a retail, it's a separate
Definition,
it's a separate permit, it's a separate thing. This is for warehouse and distribution.
So when they filled out their permit for this, they would say retail and wholesale warehouse.
Distribution, yeah, they do both.
So you're good with the language as is?
Yeah, I still have the option. We're not eliminating it. We're just clarifying that they're two different things.
All right.
That makes sense?
I thought we straightened that out a long time ago.
Yeah, we did amongst ourselves, I think.
If we're good with that, that takes us to inclusionary zoning. I did not hear a lot of,
What are these comments in the side?
those are town council's comments.
And the blue, is that you, or is that?
I just want to make sure you're,
Blue is me.
Okay.
wouldn't take much.
So I'm inclined to take all of town council's comments. I'll make the clarifications that are necessary. The only comment I got from one of the other boards was from the zoning board. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to read what the zoning board said. The zoning board supports the inclusionary zoning proposal with some amendments. The board recommends that the compatibility section be amended to include a requirement that affordable units be comparable with respect to the number of bedrooms. Board also recommends that section 301, 4.37 be deleted. That is the section that allows alternative locations. So let me talk about that for a second. Most inclusionary housing bylaws have that option where if you can prove to the planning board that you have a hardship on the property you want to build your project on, but you've got land elsewhere that you're willing to build multifamily housing on, that's what this is for. Now, there's also another provision that usually goes along with that, which I did not include on purpose. Many inclusionary housing bylaws allow the developer to pay money to the town in lieu of providing affordable housing. So essentially, that allows them to buy their way out of providing the affordable housing in their development. It then puts the onus on the town to manage those funds and use that money to build affordable housing.
My town's not in the building.
Small town like Sterling, are we in the home building business?
No.
Is that a rhetorical question?
That is a rhetorical question. And besides, you may not have a town planner who's going to keep track of all this and chase that, come up with proposals to use that money that they give you. So that's why I didn't include that in there. But I did include the option of using land under same ownership elsewhere, should they be able to prove to the planning board that they have a hardship.
The hardship, though, here is defined as the property cannot physically accommodate the required affordable units and/or related requirements such as height, setbacks, or parking, period.
That's good.
That's it, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned at the forum that he didn't understand why they would have a hardship.
Can I ask a question about that? I think the concern we had when we discussed it was how could you have a hardship that only applies to affordable units? It wouldn't apply to market rate units. So it seemed to us to be an opening to allow some developer to come in and try to save money by placing the affordable units someplace else rather than in this particular development. I mean, if a hardship exists, it would have to apply to market rate units as well as affordable units. So that's why we had a concern about whether that should even be included.
I'm not particularly wed to this provision. I mean, it's up to you folks whether you want to allow this alternative or not. You've heard Pat make his case.
My own opinion is it does lead to that, probably the wrong word, but that paranoia that a developer would say, oh yeah, I can build this here, even if it would never happen, that they're going to move the affordable units to next door to me, next door to you, this whole thing, because part of this to me is that it needs to be palatable at this voting, otherwise it won't pass. And I can at least understand striking it, because I think it will add confusion. I mean, if we have people on the ZBA having confusion with it and wondering how it could be manipulated, I can see your average voter here being concerned that this will turn into, oh, they'll put the nice houses here, but they'll put all the low-income ones, in the middle of the town, or, right next to me, which is what they're really concerned about.
Can I just add one thing, if I may? The other issue on that, on the inclusionary zoning proposal related to the number of bedrooms, I mean, the same argument, I think, could be made that a developer could come in and, in order to save money, decide that the affordable units will have one bedroom. So I'm just like...
I'm willing to address that provision.
Yeah, okay, I just thought, I mean, the idea is comparability, so we just thought that it would be appropriate to include the number of bedrooms in the comparability requirement.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. You took that down.
Let's stick on the alternative location issue. Keep, toss.
Toss it.
I'm fine tossing it.
I'm fine tossing it too.
I'm not wed to it either.
Yeah.
Not our hill to die on.
It's a fairly good idea just to not forfeit any affordable units, but if that's the project that they should be going in.
To me, though, it would be, if you agree, then they build the thing maxed out with non-affordable units and say, oh, they don't fit. See, I built, and what do you do at that point? Because it
I
doesn't.
think you'd have to define what the hardship was, really.
Well, it is in
That's
here.
what you'd have to do to make that palatable. You'd have to define the hardship.
Okay. So that leaves us with the big elephant in the room, which is our current...
So are we going to go back to the comparability or no?
You're going to tune that up?
Yeah, I'll tune that up to make sure that
Number of
the
bedrooms.
comparable units are have the same
Size.
number of bedrooms.
Bedroom something.
Big elephant in the room is our combo multifamily and senior housing bylaw. So you've got the input from the other boards. Hopefully you watched the forum for December 8th. You've got a list of concerns from the zoning board on that. So I put together the issues that we need to work through. And that will be on this page that is part of your...
Yep.
Okay. So our options are, do we keep these two issues in the same bylaw as is? Or do we split the bylaws into and move forward with the senior housing bylaw and leave the multifamily bylaw for another day?
Why couldn't we move forward with both?
Move forward with both.
I think they should be together, because it doesn't make any sense to me to say, okay, well, we'll pull out the senior housing and we'll get that straight so the seniors can have affordable housing or housing that's more reasonably cost. But if a younger person wants to do it in a multifamily, well, we don't have that. So it doesn't make any sense to me. They're one and the same, except one should have provisions for seniors and one should be multifamily.
I only...
Like, ideally, I agree with that, but it's just the risk of not passing.
I think the feedback I've gotten is that people want to split this into.
I also think that if we went to town meeting with both of those combined, until the town moderator at 11:30 at night stopped discussion, there would be people constantly arguing that this is what they see in it, this is what they see in it. I think if we break it in half, hopefully there's some clarity to each.
So pitching this combo bylaw as a by right use, I think you're going to have your asses handed to you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I can see moving forward with the senior housing bylaw. Now, Eric, you seem to think that further discussions with Joe Curtin, you might be able to come up with a compromise.
Maybe. I mean, he's
Not in time for this town meeting,
Maybe not, I don't know.
but
He seemed totally open to it. He thought we were pretty close. Like after the housing forum, we both talked. and he was-
On what specifics, just so I...
Just the
density.
density
the
calculations, the
those are the
setbacks, yeah.
I can, honestly, we've done this before. The density and setbacks are all of 20 minutes of discussion. And then hopefully we meet somewhere. No, I'm saying amongst the board,
Oh, yeah.
amongst the board,
amongst us.
amongst the board, right.
It's also 20 minutes amongst them, but then you bring us together,
Yeah.
2 hours and no coming together.
So I could see leaving the multifamily as is for another day, and then perhaps with further talks with the zoning board, with a patient new planner, you might be able to come up with something that you both can live with.
Well, that makes sense if you want to move at least one of them forward now.
I think,
Makes sense.
Putting forward a by right senior housing bylaw is
Very powerful.
is a winner.
Yeah.
Trying to get too much bite at the apple and
I do not see many people objecting to affordable senior housing by right, or senior housing, because you hear it at every meeting that we need senior housing. At any time there's a group, it's one of the top 5 things people talk about.
So senior housing by right,
yes.
Yes.
I have no issue with that.
leave multifamily for another day?
Yes.
I wish we could,
When you say another day, you're not at the May meeting?
Not at the May meeting.
Why can't you consider, assuming they're going to be separate, why can't you consider both at the May meeting?
Except we're not in agreement on a multifamily bylaw.
I think the idea is that we're not going to get to an agreement in the next 30 days.
There's no way the planning board's going to support having an 80-foot buffer all around a multifamily property. That's just too much unusable land.
Well, that's fine. Can I just ask a question about that? I think in your project, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, the buildings are 75 feet from adjacent property lines?
70.
70?
About 70.
I thought it was 75, but all right, whatever. And they're not going to be any, you're going to build 16 buildings, and they're not going to be any closer than the buildings that currently exist. Is that correct or not correct?
What's not going to be any closer?
The buildings that have not been erected yet, are they going to be closer to the property lines than the 3 that are already constructed?
I think they're all about the same. I think they're all about the same, but we're not 80 feet from the road, and we didn't have to be.
Well, I'm not talking about the road, I'm talking about adjacent property lines. If they're 70 or 75 feet.
Well, there may be times that you can make that work, but there's certainly going to be times when you can't.
I know, but I'm saying in your project, is that what you're going to do, or do you know at this point? Are they going to be 70 or 75 feet away?
Yes.
Right, and you're going to continue with the project and presumably make a profit. So what's the big deal about 5 extra feet? I guess that's one of the concerns.
Before we even get to that, just so it doesn't involve an existing project or discussion on that, just so it doesn't muddy the waters, I think the by right and special permit is always going to be a bigger issue there. I also think someone chimed in, which I agree, that if the open space was behind my house and I had people camping and doing and walking, I would not be happy. It effectively is not open space because that person would consider that their backyard.
The Open Space Committee does not consider that to be
Right,
usable.
and I also think that the idea is, I have no issue with the septic system area being part of open, but if you're talking drainage facilities, no. There's so many questions on this.
We're going to get to.
Right, I'm just saying, when you're talking about multifamily, there's so many questions. I myself would rather see it special permit with a smaller setback, especially than 80 feet, and then based on neighborhood feedback, based upon the best fit for the area, that can be decided, rather than saying a blanket statement that every single one needs to be at 80 feet, which then may take some properties completely out of it when you're talking houses on both sides and a road, especially if it's 80 feet off the road, 80 feet off either side, and then you're talking two houses. There may be some land in town, not that there's much, where it becomes completely impractical, but if someone came with a good plan to the ZBA and said, hey, this is what we want to do, but it's at 55, but it fits with the neighborhood, there's not neighbors objecting to it, it doesn't project extra light, I hate to just eliminate that with that large locked-in number. I myself don't believe it should be by right, it should be by special permit, so that can be adjusted site-specific. If it was by right, I'd have a completely different feeling, but I do not like the idea of by right and then making these very large exclusionary swaths of information within it. Does that make sense to anyone else?
It does.
Out in left field.
But in the two meetings that you had me here, this meeting and our meeting in January, I don't think we can sort out a multifamily bylaw.
I don't think we could, we'd have to sort it out in 30 days, right? If we were to get this thing published and have hearings in it, I don't see that happening either.
So let's set aside multifamily for another day. Eric, if you want to take a crack at working with Joe and the new planner on it.
Is there a new planner?
I don't know.
Did they post the job?
I know the town administrator is talking about sharing a town planner with West Boylston. He's also considering just having someone being a planning board administrator for both planning board, zoning board, and conservation. I don't know what they're going to do, what they're going to settle on.
Sounds to me like they're trying to save money is what that sounds like to me.
Well,
But I don't know.
why spend over $100,000 on a town planner in a town that really doesn't want to change? I'm just being honest.
I can understand that philosophy, that someone says if you have a part-time person, then less change will happen, and maybe that makes people happy, who
Your
knows?
part-time person would simply be coordinating the development process, getting the notices out to the abutters, to the paper.
Taking the
And also, we're 3/4 done with things that you've wanted to do, and you're talking about a lot of the zoning changes, so you're not talking major changes if we get through multifamily at some point.
Yeah.
For what, 10 years?
That's the bulk of the zoning rewrite right there.
So you're talking the next town planner, maybe a light lift. So they don't want to pay that person full-time for, what's going on.
When I hear the word part-time, 20 hours a week, that's no benefits. I already know the drill is. All right? Very difficult one.
Well, I believe when you share a planner with another town, you cover half, they cover half of the benefits. So we'll see how it plays out.
I don't think it will, but that's all right.
Okay, so we're going to move forward with senior housing as a by right use. Go down to prescribed housing mix. Do we want to prescribe a housing mix? Or leave it up to the developer?
I think if we don't put something in, we're going to end up with $800,000 senior housings. These large houses is what we'll end up with. They'll just be ranches instead of, or they'll end up just being $1 million houses there, 3,000 square foot.
Yeah.
I think we just saw that with a multifamily that was all single families.
Multiple houses on one lot, Lou.
That counts as multifamily. Yeah.
Come on.
Didn't we actually add that when we were talking? Didn't we develop a ratio or some numbers?
Yeah, we did. Prescribed housing mix.
At least
25% of those shall be multifamily units.
At least.
So, but you're talking, in this, multifamily means triples and quads.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Everyone comfortable with the prescribed housing mix?
It's old news.
Yeah. I think it kind of eliminates duplexes unless they're more profitable, but I don't know enough about that.
The idea was to get moving with these.
So density would be 2 single-family homes per acre, 2 duplexes, or 4 units per acre, and multifamily would be one unit per 10,000 square feet. So basically, for duplexes and multifamily, we were talking 4 units per acre.
Density.
Except for the singles, that works. Could build a single quad or 2 duplexes per acre.
Good with that?
Good with that.
Dimensional standards. All dwellings and structures shall be located a minimum of 40 feet from adjacent properties and public ways, and principal buildings on lots of single ownership shall be no less than 25 feet from each other. I don't know that you have that. You might have to share with Val.
Okay. I don't think I do.
Where is it?
Page 2 of multifamily.
On the page.
Okay, I went with the setbacks that our current multifamily applies to duplexes, seeing that that's the setback that enabled duplexes to be built, and every multifamily that's been built in town has been duplexes. So that's why I went with the 40 feet standard.
I hate to be the contrarian again.
Go ahead.
My only concern there is now that it's by right, that is the maximum you're going to see. And we're all aware that we have multifamily developments that have larger setbacks than that through the special permit. Those I
Just for senior housing now, though.
Agreed. But I also think senior housing from the exterior is going to look very much like multifamily housing. It services a different group, but it's going to, from the external view and from the neighbors, it's exactly the same thing.
So what's wrong with that?
Before we had the ability for neighbors and a board to chime in on whether that's appropriate. Now we're taking that completely away by right, and we're allowing the setbacks that I know for a fact have been bumped at certain points.
It's the exact same setbacks in the residential development, so you can go in there and build houses in a residential development and follow those exact same setbacks. It's a standard setback in the town. It's what everything.
But if you were building multifamily, it wouldn't be, because you'd be going through special permit. We're allowing multifamily. We're allowing quads. And if somebody told me I had a quad 25 feet from a property line, I think that's where my issue comes.
But we can't. It's 25 feet from each other.
That's 25 feet from each other.
Should we look at
40
Oh,
feet.
sorry, 40 feet. I'm looking at it wrong.
So it could be a quad, it could be a triple, or it could be a McMansion, it could be all of the above.
Can I ask you a question? Just going back to the by right for a second. There was a public forum that we all know about a couple of weeks ago, poorly attended, but there was a view expressed there, and then there was a public forum the year before. And I think a constant theme from both public forums was that townspeople didn't like the idea of by right. So if you're talking about, and I realize it's senior housing, but if you're talking about a senior housing project by right with 40 feet setbacks, I just think you're going to get significant pushback from voters. And I say that based upon our experience listening to these applications over the past several years and the pushback that we received.
We did get a bunch of feedback that people supported the senior housing being by right with.
You got, all right.
But maybe not with the 40 feet, I don't know.
You've got
Do you
feedback
know
from
if the ZBA would support it or not?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if ZBA would support it or not?
We're taking the position that all of these applications, whether it's multifamily or senior housing, should require a special permit process and not be by right. But you think there's going to be a significant difference in people's attitude? They would be opposed to by right for multifamily, but they would be okay with senior housing by right? Then That may be the case, but my sense is that you're going to get a lot of pushback at a town meeting if it's by right.
Open Space Committee thinks it should be by right. And we got feedback from someone else too that
Yeah, Joe King, Finance Committee thinks it ought to be by right.
The difficulty here is,
There's a need, there's a demand, there's a need for these
I also
things.
think though that everyone in their head has a different vision of what senior housing is. Some people think it's some very small cottage-style duplexes, 1,000 square foot, and that certainly isn't what's going to be built. No one can afford to build that nowadays. A builder would go broke. So it is one of those things where I think if someone then gets the vision that this is essentially, like I said, going to look like any other multifamily development, that's where we've seen the most pushback, or at least I have. The ZBA meetings that I've attended prior, it seems like every multifamily development brings out every neighbor in opposition in some way, shape, or form until there's a compromise.
Do you think that'll change if there's an extra 40 feet from a property line?
No, what I'm saying
It's
is,
not gonna change
I think contemplating it as a special permit, at least they're
So
not,
let me pitch this idea. How about we keep it 40 feet for single family and duplexes, but bump it up for 60 feet for triplexes and quads?
I'm not quite sure that makes any sense.
I'm just trying to get us off the dime.
Yeah, I
I mean, I just think we go with it. I mean, it's what we
Yeah.
have right now. It works. I mean, all of a sudden, we're trying to reinvent the wheel.
the special permit though, and if they're all getting changed, then certainly what we have right now doesn't work. That's my issue. Is if every single time someone goes for this sort of development, even though it isn't senior, it's going to look like multifamily.
It's going to be up to the lay of the land, really. You'll be able to go 40 feet, but you may not have to go 40 feet. Nobody's going to go 40 feet if you don't have to.
On the subject property and the other abutting property, they're 40 feet away from the property line, so that's 80 feet.
I get that, I'm just saying, I
And
think
it's
it is the most hotly contested thing we've seen for multifamily, is people saying the houses are too close.
But they want this. They want this, so we shouldn't be trying to stop it through zoning.
I don't think it stops it through zoning, it allows input.
Well, what happens is if you start creating too much open space like that and cutting down, it becomes non-feasible to do it. Or you're going to have less units, more expensive at that point to make it work, and you kind of defeat the purpose of the whole thing. It isn't going to look any different when you drive by if something's another 40 feet away than if it's 40 feet closer. You get the same thing.
I'm inclined to keep these dimensional standards.
So am I.
We're using them now, they work. And just because it says 40 feet doesn't mean everything's all of a sudden going to be 40 feet. It's going to depend on the lay of the land. It may have to be 40 feet to work on one piece of property, but it may not have to be on another. So 40 feet's the minimum you can go, that's great. You may not have to go 40 feet. You might be able to go 60, but to be required 60 will eliminate some parcels from being able to do something like this, or it will cut down on the amount of units that you can build, which will increase the cost.
Consensus of the board, keep the dimensional standards as is?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
No, but
4-1. Okay, before we move forward, there's one item I want to bring to the board's attention. If you go back to the first page,
page one,
page 1. Occupancy restriction for senior housing development, section 301-4.2.4.
Where are you?
First page.
page one, not the page up front. Has a 1 at the bottom, it'd be like the third page in.
Yep.
Occupancy restriction for senior housing developments towards the second half of the page.
Yep. 301-424.
Yep. Apparently, if we have item B, children under age of 18 may not reside in the dwelling unit in a senior housing development for more than 3 months in any 9-month period. First of all, who's going to enforce that? And secondly, if we keep it, we keep this provision, we cannot apply the inclusionary housing bylaw to this. So if we remove it, the inclusionary housing bylaw would apply for this if they're going to build 8 or more units. That's a comment from town council. So I'd be inclined to remove this provision so that you can apply the inclusionary housing bylaw.
Well, being able to include the inclusionary bylaw too would be a good thing. The senior housing development one,
Bunch of kids in it.
yeah, it's 18-year-olds.
I mean, kind of especially a bunch of 13, 12, 14, because it'll be grandkids. It won't be their kids, it'll be a bunch of grandkids living.
Yeah.
Right. And that, to me, that's one of the few things that in senior housing, most people are not looking to deal with is kids.
But who's going to enforce this?
Here's my thing is, you figure in this, it's going to have an HOA, it's part of the bylaw, at least it has some sort of teeth, because an HOA will then reference it to somebody.
Well, then we can't apply the inclusionary housing bylaw if we keep this provision.
Which would, I'm trying to get like the worst negative effect of that. Sorry, I just need to understand this
So
better.
it means that they would not include affordable housing units. Affordable as the way the state
Then that
defines.
doesn't work because now you're just building a bunch of big houses again.
Yeah.
You have to strike it.
I think so.
Otherwise, you're not getting any
I
affordable
agree.
units. You have to strike it.
Okay. Now, design standards on page 2. We go down to item 1B, building design, item 1B.
Yep.
Not more than 5% of the dwelling unit shall have more than 2 bedrooms. Town council has flagged that, we can't limit bedrooms. So we're back to having a minimum or maximum unit size.
Do the 1,800 again?
Is that what we said?
Well, that was for the other units,
Yeah.
but that allows the idea of you're not building McMansions. You're building actual, especially for ranches, that's a decent-sized ranch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would even go lower than 1,800.
Yeah, I can see it, because if you're talking senior housing, the vast majority will be single-story.
1,500?
I think that's a little too small.
1,800 like we have in the,
If you're thinking 1,800 is too large, I just want your input. Where are we?
Yeah, I would go 1,500, I don't know.
That's smaller than a condo.
1,600?
I think also it's the old 2636, we need to figure out math where it makes sense for a builder to build something that size because there's not as much waste.
Well, you need enough room inside to live, so.
I mean, my first house was 1,800 and it was a 4-bedroom and they were all tiny and it was built in the 1700s and
1,800 square feet.
yeah. It was a 4-bedroom house.
let's keep it consistent with the compact development unit limit, 1,800.
I think so.
Yeah, that is the upper limit.
That's the upper limit, that's right. It's not like,
Doesn't have to
if
be.
somebody's got designs at a 1,600 or 1,700, that's what's going to go
Probably
up.
does behoove them to make slightly smaller units when they're ranches because then they can put in more units.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's like you set the limit, but that doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be every
Yeah.
time.
So it's 18?
Yeah.
So we're just gonna say that's the standard and not like a not more than 5% can be over 18. We're just
Yeah,
gonna
we're
say
gonna
18.
take that out and put in
You take that out.
max 1,800 square feet per unit.
Dwelling limit shall not be more than.
Yeah. Okay, now I'd like you to turn to page 3. Bottom half of the page, circulation and parking.
Yep.
Item C1. Okay, this is a suggestion from a citizen who's also an engineer. Instead of having definitive numerics for the site distance and tying it to dwelling units, there's an AASHTO road standard, AASHTO being the Association of Highway, the National Association of Highway Engineers. They have a sliding standard that if you're going to build X amount of units, then you need X amount of site distance. Rather than us choosing our own numbers, I'd rather just reference the AASHTO standard.
Well, I think we were following that. These numbers kind of follow that anyways, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's just one right in the
That
middle.
makes sense.
The only question I have is, I'm reading this right, that says if there's a single driveway for this number, if there's a single driveway within 150 feet, they can't put a road in. The way I read that, does that make sense to everyone? Or- Separated from all other driveways or intersecting streets by at least 150 feet, which realistically means 300 feet to the right and left. 300 feet, I just want to make sure that's not,
I'd rather take this whole provision
Just
out and
scratch
just
that whole
tie to the AASHTO standards.
I just want to make sure we don't get to a point where someone tries putting this thing in and because of some one driveway in one single house, they can't build it.
It's a little confusing. So you get rid of it and you refer to that, and that's going to
Okay.
dictate your site distances based on what you do.
So now we're down to the last issue, which is open space. What should be included in open space and what should not be included? Land for, your choices are land for septic system and leach fields.
Yes. It's empty land.
Yeah.
Anybody have objections to that one?
Nope.
Some folks had objections at the forum.
So my whole thing is 80% of the people in town probably can't even point to their leach field.
Yeah, no,
Because it's part of their lawn.
you should be able to include that. You start excluding all this stuff and you're left with no land to build on.
I also think of all the things, like, I get it on, say, drainage facilities, because you don't want someone playing in a drainage facility, but if there's a flat level piece of land that has some grass on it, just because it has a leach field in the bottom of it, that group of people that own those properties can't use it.
Well, even whether you can or can't, it's still open space.
Yeah, that's what
Well,
I'm
it's
saying.
not, you can't use it, but can you use it in the calculation of at least 60% of the parcel shall be maintained as open space?
I'm looking at that open space, not just about the neighborhood, but about use, that those people enjoy the benefit because they're more tightly packed.
But they're
of a
saying
piece of
they
open-
can use it, you just can't count it as 60%, that's all.
If you can
If
use
you
it.
did it that way.
Yeah.
Keep it?
Yep.
Land for water wells. I think that's the same
Same thing.
concept.
Same thing.
It is.
Walking and bike paths.
Yep.
Of course. Utility easements.
Yeah.
So I
it's
think
open
this
usable land.
suggestion came out of Carl's project.
Yes.
Why don't you explain the issue there?
Well, yeah.
The issue that one particular person had with using land under the power lines, the utility easement as open space.
Oh,
Right,
it's,
they were saying if it wasn't developable land, that you shouldn't be able to count it as open space in the density calculation.
Even though it's open land.
and that's just hocus pocus to cut down on what you can build.
Right.
It's open land is open land, you know?
My own opinion is the property we're talking about is probably an outlier when it comes to the amount of utility easement matched to every other property that's ever gone up for multifamily. In most cases, I'm thinking of a utility easement, meaning there's an underground easement for a piece of electrical that goes to the next property. I have one on the side of my house that goes to a property.
drainage, too.
It's very little, but it is at least a utility easement in most cases. Most, I would think, would be underground or minimal. Exceptional case, in other words, not happening much, in my opinion, is that development we're talking about. I kind of scratch my head, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything that precludes somebody from using underneath those. It's not fenced off. It's not warned against except for in very specific small areas.
Open land.
It's
open land, across from my project, under the power lines, there's a garden.
Yeah.
It's got a garden.
I have an issue saying no as a blanket statement to that, especially considering on most properties, what is it going to be, 1% or less? On many properties, it's going to be a very, very small area, and it's going to be very unimpactful. Sorry, wrong word, but it's, to me, why bother to exclude it unless someone else has strong opinions on it?
It should not exclude it.
I would.
Included.
Include it as part of the cal.
Drainage facilities. This one I could see leaving out of open space.
What is it, where are you?
Drainage facilities, the last one on that list on the first page of this whole thing.
Yes.
This one. Those were the ones we were talking about.
So your drainage facility, would you consider that your detention basin?
Yeah.
Why do you want that as open space?
Where are we?
What's the difference between that or?
I see that as unusable space. Again, it's just, my general philosophy is it's a place where the people that are there can enjoy that property. It's part of having a smaller yard, but having some open space. That to me has no other purpose other than drainage and.
Unless they're going to go swimming in it.
Okay, like that would be the one place I'd warn my little kids about, because if you have a rainstorm and they're playing in those pipes.
Yeah, I would keep drainage facilities out.
I agree.
Yep.
All right.
Handicap.
I went ahead and made that change. Bumped up the handicapped accessible unit requirement from 10% to 20%. I think that
The only
helps.
issue there becomes if they're two-story, what does that mean?
Well, they'd have to be single story. Or they'd have to design it so that they've got one of those stair things that,
Yeah. That's what I figured is if they were building 2 stories, they'd have to include a roll-in or roll-up shower, bars along the toilet, and a lift to the 2nd story, that sort of stuff.
so gang, I think we've sorted through the issues unless there are other comments you have on all of what we've done tonight. I think I have enough to go back to the workshop and
Fix a few things?
polish these up.
I agree.
Okay?
Yep.
If you review these things and you come up on something that you've got a question on, or
I know I've already stated I'm against some of the things that are in the senior housing bylaw, but the more I think of it, the more importance I'm putting on this board being of one mind and one vote and having a unanimous vote. I believe it sends a stronger message when we go to town meeting. I think it also then doesn't become a leverage point for those that do not want it. And I can see by right, at the current numbers we have, should go. And if people want to change that, then they can offer amendments. And that shouldn't be my job to be a single dissenter, which will cause more discussion and possibly not get this done. I just want to make that public and hopefully I can say I'd like to remove my no vote and vote yes, because I think that will send a message when we are at town meeting.
Unified front.
I do believe
I think
that
it's
the zoning board is going to offer amendments on this at town meeting.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of people offering
I
amendments.
think they'll want it to be special permit.
I mean, I think that's reasonable. Like, there's no way for us to get the public's read on should it be special permit or not without
Being
discussing that
right,
amendment
with 400
and
people at the
voting
town
yes or
meeting.
no, do we want this amendment?
The feedback I got in my tour and in the survey and the forums, the majority of people will want this by right.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I also think town meeting's a different beast.
Yeah.
We've seen that 1 or 2 people can get up, talk eloquently, and now you will have 50 or 100 people wanting to have some sort of change. And I think those do need to be voted on. That wouldn't surprise me. The by right, alone, because if it's not by right anymore, then they can adjust most of those things. That may stop the rest of the discussion. It may not, though.
Let me just tell you this. When the vote on the MBTA, which is a by right, people stood up and talked about it in favor because there's a need for that.
Agreed.
And it is by right. And it could have passed by 2/3 majority, and it was a simple vote. So that tells me that there's a need for it and they want it.
Okay, before I leave, I'll go over to the senior center and say, this is our senior housing bylaw. If you want to see this passed, you need to show up at town meeting.
Yeah.
We also need, I think the understanding needs to be too, that the way it's written, it's by right, which allows people to build these. Period, end of story. That if we add any more complexity to it, it then becomes an issue where some of these may not get built, or they will be built in a way that the units have to be more expensive because there'll be fewer.
You'll be defeating the purpose.
And the idea, I do agree that most people are going to see senior housing and find it fairly benign.
You're going to need to say that at town meeting.
I will, because the more I think about it, the more I think that, yes, it's going to essentially look the same from the outside, but the purpose of this serves the entire town. Everybody here talks about the fact that they're getting older and they would like to move out of their large house, and there is zero to buy in Sterling. There's nothing. And if we expect to get in senior housing in the next 10 years...
And reasonably priced.
Right. We need to make it as simple as possible for some developer to come in and choose to do that, rather than, like we've talked about with other properties, say, no, it's easy to build in Boylston or Holden or somewhere else, so I won't build in Sterling, and then people have to leave.
And you can't have 80-foot perimeter around these things because it's just too much unusable land.
Right, not as a prerequisite.
People need to understand the economics of home building.
Right. It might work on some parcels, but it'll preclude other parcels, and that's not what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
You set the limit, and then it may not go to that. Could be more. It won't be less, because that's what the limit is.
I actually think the size of it may be dictated by that distances. In many cases, you have properties that do not have a ton of frontage. And I think it won't even come to...
Or a ton of width, Mike.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like that, if you're talking about frontage, because realistically, wherever your road is...
That's coming out.
Yeah, but I'm saying that scale that you're talking about, I'm sure you get to 15, 16, 18 units or whatever, and you need a large amount of space, and that may preclude a ton of property, which then means, okay, I can build 8 or 10, and it won't be so much offsets that cause that issue. It will be traffic flow based upon that.
Yeah, well, that's based on an accepted
Totally
engineering
understood.
standard.
Totally understood.
Okay, so I'm going to put some work in on this, and I'll send it to you after Christmas. I don't expect anybody to work on this crap during Christmas.
It's not that far away either.
For town meeting, here's my suggestion. Each one of you take an article. Instead of one person doing it all, split them up. You take one, you take one, you take one, you take one, you take one. All right?
Even if it's on the more complex stuff, if someone leads the charge on this part of it. Because I think the by right will be part of what people want to change, and the setbacks will be part. And I would hate for the same person to have to come up repeatedly, because then it looks like they're on their own. That if someone decides, hey, if this comes up, I kind of get it. If this comes up, I kind of get it, but let's... Because I do see that death of a thousand cuts with that senior housing now, where they're changing it into...
You got to keep saying, folks, the more you fiddle with this, the less likely you're going to have senior housing.
Less likely, or they're going to be more expensive units.
Okay.
Because there'll be fewer, therefore the price has to go up for someone to
So
make...
I think you'd be a good spokesman for the senior housing one. So
I'll
maybe-
try.
Think about it. Think about which one each of you feel most comfortable talking about at town meeting.
Will you come to press the button for us?
No.
Oh.
January 23rd is my last day.
You can drive by and beep. Just drive by and beep. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to the brick, yeah.
Are you allowed to say where you're going?
Yeah, I'm going to Lunenburg.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to Lunenburg. I'm going to start in February
I
after
have a few
taking a
friends
week
that live
off.
in Lunenburg.
It's a big raise.
Good.
And with
And you
only,
know what? I'm gonna just say this openly. No one has done more for this town in the town planner or planning as you have
In a short time.
in a short time.
Short time.
And I don't think it's realized a lot until you're gone. That's my own opinion.
A lot of people don't realize how much it takes to make these changes. They think we're just dreaming this up in 15 minutes, and they don't realize someone's doing all the back-end work.
that's why it's a process. It's a year-long process.
Well, I don't think people realized what we were sitting with to try and separate with developers or builders or homeowners coming in here. And, I mean, it's antiquated.
This guy's done a great job, in my own opinion.
Well, gang, I really enjoyed working with you. Val, I know you're stepping down from the board. I think I found someone who's interested in taking over your spot. A young lady who went on the Devon's housing tour with us and asked a ton of intelligent questions. She's very well-versed in home building and energy efficiency. I think she's going to be a great asset to the board.
If I was younger, I wouldn't have a problem, but
Yeah, hey, you can't do this shit forever.
You can't do it forever.
this will make
When you
36
told me how
years.
old we were gonna be, I am.
This will make 36 years for me in public service. And I think that's enough.
Get out. Get out and live your life.
It's not appreciated.
I'm gonna have the select board make a plaque.
It's a thankless job.
Yeah.
It is. There's
I
no-
served 30 years in West Boylston, not
That's
six
amazing.
boards.
That's amazing.
Hey, let's approve some meeting minutes and call it a night.
Sounds good?
Holy cow, we went quite a ways. I thought this was going to be relatively quick.
We only got one, right?
Meeting minutes from November.
November 20th?
20th.
Not me. Like March of 2023.
No, we killed that one off.
Excellent, excellent, good, good.
Fine to me. I'm all set with these minutes. Take a motion to meet.
Take a motion to accept November 20th, 2025 planning board meetings. Minutes as printed.
You have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
Okay. So our next meeting is going to be Thursday, the 15th.
I think I already have that in here.
Me moving on is why I asked to move that meeting up a week to the 15th. You'll have the revised bylaws in time. I'll give you a couple weeks to look them over. We'll finalize them on the 15th. I will not leave Sterling without advertising for your required public hearing on the zoning amendments, which will take place sometime in March. All you got to do is hold your hearing. That'll be your last chance to make any edits to the zoning amendments, and then you pass them off to town meeting. All right?
I'm sorry to see you go.
Well, thanks, Sean. I've enjoyed it.
I'm gonna save myself. I think you did a good job.
Well, you know how I
Definitely
feel.
wish you all the
I don't have to
best.
say it again,
No,
so.
no.
Same.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Have a good holiday.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Same to you.
Motion to adjourn.
Holidays, anybody that's...
So moved.